All right, welcome back, guys, to another episode of Cops Court and Community. I'm Darnell. As always, if this is your first time here, please subscribe to the channel. And once you do, put in the comment section below, I subscribed, and I will personally welcome you to the neighborhood. Also, if this is your first time on the podcast, please subscribe to the channel as well. So today I have a special guest on the show. I have Mr. Xavier Wells, who is the founder and creator of Cadet Rookie Cop LLC. You can check out his channel right here on YouTube as well. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Mr. Xavier Wells. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, a bit about myself. Navy vet, did 4 years as a IT on the USS New York. Currently work for Police Department out of Texas. Been there just over 4 years. Adjunct DT instructor. I have written a few books, got a few books out, and I start my doctorates in criminal justice in January.
Nice. That's a lot. Let me first say thank you for your service to this great country, because what you and the rest of the veterans have done allowed me and you and my family, one, to live in this great nation unrestricted, allowed me to do what I do. So I appreciate your service. So thank you so much for that. So let me start by asking you, what made you decide on the profession of being in law enforcement?
It was really a combination of a few things. So growing up, my dad was in law enforcement, but he did corrections. He did 33 years in corrections at out of Miami-Dade. So I grew up around that. My aunt was the same way. My stepmom was also in corrections. So my brother and I, we grew up in a law enforcement home. My dad put me in martial arts at an early age also. And so as I got older, I thought I was going to be a pro fighter. That didn't work out too well for me. And so as I got older, I wanted something that was going to keep me up, keep me about, keep me outside, give me a reason to stay in shape, give me a reason to continue my training. And I had a good example of my dad. I saw what he was able to do. I saw how he was able to provide for us, raise us. I saw the example that he was able to set. And I was like, and he always told us growing up, he's like, if you're going to get into politics, he's like, don't do corrections. He's like, yeah, he said, go into law enforcement or do firefighter. The law enforcement piece spoke most to me. And so that was really, for me, the driving factor.
I actually was called by our county corrections department. I went the first day and something said, nah, just don't do it,
Yeah. My dad always said, because he did it for 33, he said it's hard for them to get the respect and the contracts that they want because their whole job is behind closed doors.
So what is it like, there in Texas with this whole COVID thing with respect to, your department and how things have changed? Is it, status quo for you guys down there or no?
Definitely not. Definitely not anything but. It's been crazy. It's been crazy, but I don't know how it is at your department, but I know my department, it's kind of like, it's almost fly by night. I mean, 1 minute they're saying one thing, we're doing things this way. The next minute we're doing things this way. I mean, when it was first coming to the point where people realized it was going to be a serious thing and it's sticking around, we typically ride two to a car up here. Then they took that away. They're like, even though we're in show up together, even though we're in show down together, they were like, yeah, we're not doing doubled up on the cars right now. They had us doing masks. And then we had the riots. And it's been an interesting time with the whole thing, for sure.
I'd say pretty much everybody must be operating the same way, because with us, same thing. You don't have to mask up unless, you have somebody in the car with you. Mm-hmm. And any of the agency's buildings, you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
No matter what, you'll catch a rip if you don't. But that's a whole nother story. But
Yeah.
pretty much everything is, same across the board for everybody I see, which
Yeah, yeah,
which it protects you, it protects your fellow officers. So
absolutely,
I'm in agreement with making sure that we're all protected.
absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've said, many times to a lot of people, it takes a certain breed of person to be in law enforcement.
Yeah.
Now, you said you're an adjunct defensive tactics instructor for your department. Now,
Mhm.
what type of people are you seeing coming through the door of your department? Are people just saying, you know what, I need a job? Other than, my family members, being in law enforcement, what type of people are coming through the door for your department?
Oh yeah. it's uh, it's it's changing. It's changing, and I mean to say it as frankly as possible. Like there is a softer breed of person coming through the county, but that's a result of honestly what my city council, the mayor, and the vocal part of the city that are essentially anti law enforcement. That's what they're asking for. So I mean, just from when I've gone through, and I haven't been out too long, it's changed so much. I mean, we can't like we call it smoking. We can't smoke them like we used to. We can't yell at them like we used to. Has to be words of encouragement. Um, we have, so on the DT side, we have kind of like a gut check day, like a heart check day on the very first day, where we exercise them like crazy, and then we put them in the boxing ring, and they have to box with us. Um, that's changed. That's changed completely. That's changed completely. Now we have the lieutenants and the commanders in there watching now, and they make sure that we're not turning it up on them too much. And even if we have failures, they're allowed to go through 2-3 times. And the
Two, three
expectation,
times through the
yeah,
entire academy?
no, 2-3 times through that evolution, where
Okay.
normally if you quit, you're out.
Wow.
Now they're getting 2-3 chances, and the expectation is on each subsequent attempt, we go lighter on them since they've already been through it.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's we lose a lot more cadets than we used to, because they've reduced the standards, because we need the bodies.
Everybody.
Yeah, we need the bodies. We need the bodies, and the city puts out that they want a softer,
More
kinder,
gentler
yeah,
department.
exactly, for department. And so, some police applicants are like, hey, yeah, that's me. And then they come, and even though they have tried to stifle the DT program, it's one of the things that we have a bigger argument than most, because it's so critical to officer safety. So while like the boxing days, like the rigor is still there, and we lose a lot of people during those DT weeks.
So it's still a great profession,
I
good
think so, yeah.
career. So I commend anybody that wants to get out there and do it. Forget about what you're hearing. I hate the cops. Forget about all of that. Do
Yep,
what you got to do for you and your family.
absolutely.
Um, so let's just move forward a little bit. And again, I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I know
No,
you're
no problem.
very busy. So you have several books published.
Yes.
Applicant to Police Cadet,
Mhm.
how to navigate the police hiring process, and graduating with honors, mastering the police academy. That's just to name a couple of them.
Yep.
What was the inspiration behind those books?
So it actually started. I'll tell you. So my very first book I put out was the Rookie Handbook, a quick reference guide to calls for service. And what started that was me being on FTO. And so I was going through FTO, and I was like, man. So I would ask these questions. I'm a step by step kind of person. I was like, okay. I'm like, so like if we go to this type of call, like what is the overall thing that we're looking to accomplish here? And you get different FTOs, and they give you different answers. And some of the information is more beneficial than others. And I just found myself, I was like, man, there has to be like a set thing. And then one of the FTOs that I had, he sparked. I'll tell him, he sparked this idea for me. He gave me a thumb drive, and he had like maybe for like 8 calls. He had like, and each one was like maybe 4 or 5 bullet points. And he had like, do this, do this, do this, and do this on this call. And he had that for like 7 or 8 calls. And it's just really like 4 or 5 bullet points. And it was extremely helpful for me. And I was like, man, I can flush this out and do this for all the calls. I'm like, because if I'm wanting, more information, I'm sure there has to be at least one other rookie out there that wants, kind of like a step-by-step on what they need to do. Once that came out, I realized just like, there's an opportunity in my story and the struggle I had to go through to get on. That's what drove me to end up going to the military, because I just simply wasn't a qualified candidate at the time when I was 19 at all. And so through that story and everything I went through, I was like, this is what led me to do Applicant to Police Cadet.
Okay.
And so I was like, that, and then I went through the academy. And so I was like, man, again, I think that there's a beneficial story in my experience. Let me put it out and see if it'll be a benefit to people who are in the application process or just getting ready to go through the academy, kind of take some of the mystique out of it and kind of put out, what I did during the academy to make me stand out enough to, garner the award that I got.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm kind of working on a book myself, but my book can't come out until I'm off the job, because I personally think that it would be a conflict of interest. But, I'd like to, follow up with you on that whole,
Absolutely.
Publishing process offline.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
let me just go off path for a second. And one of my partners, Keith Hammer, he does a whole nother YouTube channel himself. And he's our expert with these Texas license plates. The city is just flooded with these plates that you could, I know they changed it a little bit, but you just go online and get these license plates.
Yeah.
Is it a problem there as well, or no?
It is. Yes. Yes.
It's a big problem here, man.
Yeah. And that's what drove me to write that book. I was probationary officer, taking so many of these service calls that just come out. It's like, hey, there's a car here. It's been sitting for, a week, 2 weeks. And they know that the people who call, they know it's stolen. And I show up because that's the type of call that the probationary officer takes. And I just kept noticing all of these cars had these temp tags. And so I'd read the tag. I put the 28 out over the air, and it would come back either to a different vehicle or it come back, hey, it's not in the database. Yes. And so then I got to run it by VIN. And so it finally, after probably the 10th or 12th one, it finally started to click. I was like, this has to be a crime. Like, every single time these cars are stolen and every single time they have these fake tags, I'm like, it has to be a crime. I didn't know if it was. It had to be a crime. So I started looking through, Texas transportation code, Texas penal code. And sure enough, I found it. I was like, hey, guess what? It actually is a crime. And so I start kind of working and actually got a lot of pushback at my department for it, because no one had ever made any arrests for it. And so I initially started off in Texas transportation code and found that it was a Class B misdemeanor.
Okay.
So I started doing a whole bunch, catching people for that. And then there were some people I had that had multiple. Like, they had just 5 or 6 in their trunk. And I was like, man, again, there has to be, there has to be something else with this. So then I found a correlating charge in penal code for the possession of multiple, the manufacture of them, which actually ended up being a state jail felony out here in Texas.
Okay.
And so I start making those arrests. And at first people were looking at me weird. Like, what is this? Like, it was called tampering with government record. It falls under that charge. And people were looking at me weird for it at first, but then it started to catch on.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the book, Expert Witness, A Civilian's Guide to Effective Crime Reporting. Tell us about this book and who is it for?
So Expert Witness. I actually look at that book as like an intro book, because I'm working on another book right now. But it's for the community. So all the books that we were talking about before, that was definitely from police perspective for people either already in the field or looking to come into it. But, took thousands of calls, especially by this point, thousands. And, you start to kind of see the same issues. People want to know, oh, why did it take so long for you to get to my call, and their call, might not just be that important. It might be like a priority 3 call, low priority call. I know it's important to them, but in the bigger scheme of things, but they don't know. They don't know because we really don't educate them on that. Or, they call because someone broke into their house, but when we get there, the victim's already gone through their house and touched everything. And so we got to tell them, like, hey, like, well, can you pull principal? Like, not anymore. You touched everything. And so you kind of, ruined the car. You already went through your car that was broken in through. You didn't put out, a good description. And so, we can't do our jobs effectively. This is all things that, I've dealt with disgruntled, community members on just so many calls. And I realized, like, we don't, like, we go through the police academy and they train us on, how to do our jobs, what to look for, how to do this, how to do this, how to do this. And the community never gets that training. We just kind of expect them to be like, yeah, why don't you know what the guy looks like? You just saw him. Why can't you give me a description of what he was wearing? Why can't you do this? Why are you touching everything? You should. But they've truly never been trained on any of it. And then it kind of, fuels the already growing divide between, the community and police, because they feel like, we're not giving them the level of service, or they're not getting the results that they expected from us. And so I just felt like there was a gap to fill, and expert witness was my first introduction into filling that gap. Just kind of help them basically become an expert witness, kind of take them behind the scenes of like, hey, so we have something called call priority. And, these are the type of calls that fall within that call priority. And if you're on the lower end of that call priority, we might be driving to you and a higher priority call comes out, and we will get pulled off of that call. And so you will sit there. And like, and that's not a personal thing. That's just how it works behind the scenes.
Right. So now, can this book just doesn't apply to Texas? Someone
not at all.
in
Not at
New
all.
York can definitely go
everywhere.
Take this book and apply what you have in this book.
Absolutely.
California, anywhere.
Absolutely. Yep.
Good. I'm definitely gonna put all of the links to those books in the description box below. So if the community wants to know what goes on behind the scenes, and what to expect, if I'm saying it correctly, then you really need to pick up this book, because I think that's a fantastic idea. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is such a good idea, to pull people in and put them in our shoes to see what it is that's happening behind the scenes, as they're putting out these calls for service. So that's definitely a great idea. I'm gonna have to pick up that book myself. Not just because you're here, but I just want to go through it, and see, how that can make me, a better law enforcement officer for the community that I serve. So definitely going to pick that up myself. So you have that YouTube channel called, Cadet Rookie Cop. Tell the viewers, one, why you got started with the channel, who the channel is for, and is your information for anyone. Now, I know the video about the house thing, definitely I can take advantage of it. My father, my brothers, family, and friends for sure. But tell us about your channel.
Okay. Yeah. So the channel, just started this year. Probably one of the hardest things. It took me a while, because there's some big old channels out there, and I have relationships with them because they've done videos on my books. So like Free Field Training, Donut Operator, Fuzz Fam, 401, all those guys. And I look at what they do and the content they put out, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to do a channel, I can't come out with the exact same thing that they're doing, And so I racked my brain forever and ever about it. And at work, I have just conversations with all of my shift mates all the time about, doing something, setting up another stream of income outside of the job and kind of padding your retirement with resources that aren't just the pension.
Right.
And I talked about it. I talk all the time, help some of my buddies implement different accounts and different retirement strategies. And I was like, there's no one in the field of policing on YouTube talking about police finance, focusing in on police retirements.
Mm-hmm.
No one's talking about that. And on a bigger scope, really in the shift, in the locker rooms, in the show ups, we're not having these conversations just really in general. Right. It's always on a small thing. So I was like, man, yeah, I think this is it. I think this is where, I'll kind of stake my claim because I'm just so active in it myself. And so, yeah, that was how the channel got started. And then as far as the information, I think largely overall, yeah, I think it's for everybody. I do focus in, I have the pension alert videos, which are definitely, I don't think they're just for police. Because, I mean, if you work for a city or a government, federal, local, state, and you trying to collect a pension, I think it'll benefit anyone to show just how easy it is for those things to change or go away altogether, especially over the long term with the way people manage them. So I think that's beneficial to not just police officers, but firefighters, correctional officers, city employees, federal employees. Yes. And then, like you were saying, some of my content, the way I kind of do things, it's kind of the same way I write my books. I kind of build. So the first thing I'll put out is just kind of an intro of this. And then I start to go more in depth. And so that's why I'm talking about more about the real estate and stuff like that. And then the crypto, like I just did. So I kind of put out introductory videos first, and then I use those to okay, now that I've introduced the viewership to this concept, I can go a lot more in depth into it. And I think that benefits literally anyone who's interested in setting up, other streams, other income streams, especially going into their retirement years.
Great information, man. I stumbled across your channel and I was right away subbed, and I'm like, yeah, this is good.
Appreciate it.
This is good, man. And I know what it takes to put out a channel. Yeah. I know when you're trying to find that content, what's staying relevant. You have your evergreen stuff, which no matter when they look at it, it's going to be relevant. And then you have, your current, current event stuff. You have your trending ideas. That stuff will garner you those views, and then maybe those views will convert into subs. But evergreen stuff, which I see you have a lot of good evergreen stuff out there, I know you're going to be fine, with your channel. So I definitely, support you 100%.
Thank you.
And listen, anything you care to add? Anything you want to add that I did not ask you?
Tough
one, huh?
It is. I would say that this is one of the things that kind of touching on why I'm going for my doctorates.
Okay.
I would say one of the biggest, and eventually I'll talk about on the channel. One of the biggest issues in our profession, I know you know that, is cops like to complain about a lot of stuff. Cops love to complain, and a lot of time their complaints and their gripes, they are valid. They're valid, especially when it comes to leadership stuff, especially when it comes to, why certain policies are being made and things of that nature. The gripes are valid, but then on the same token, very few of us are willing to do what it takes and get to the position to change the issues that are validly made, validly made aware of. And so I would say, just one of the things, the biggest reason why I chose to go for my doctorate, because I do have personal aspirations of going to the top of my agency, because there are a lot of things that are wrong, a lot of things that could be done better.
Excellent. Well, listen, I'll be there supporting you, 100%, man. I root for you. I'm going to pray for you. You'll get there. I'm going to be like, hey, I remember that guy when he did this, and look where he's at now.
Did it. Yes, sir.
Hey, listen, I appreciate your time, man. This was really, really good. hopefully we can get together and do it again. But like I said, offline, I'm definitely going to be picking your brain a little bit. So
reach out to me. Absolutely.
So we got to support one another, not just, in the profession that we're in, but just human wise. We got to support one another, help bring one another up the best way we can. So if there's anything that, you need from me, questions, comments, any concerns, you need help with anything, by all means, reach out. I'll hit you up with my personal information, once we're done here. So by all means, reach out, man. If you're ever in New York, before I get out of here, we'll get together once this whole COVID thing is over.
Yes, sir.
I was actually in Texas in 2015, man. I enjoyed it. I went down for football game. So spent some time in Arlington, Fort Worth area. So it was very nice. I enjoyed myself. But Xavier, man, listen, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I sincerely appreciate you. I appreciate the job you're doing, the books, hope everything is well with you, your family. And that's it, brother. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me, man.
All right, guys, listen, that's it. By all means, jump over to his channel, check out his books. I'm going to put all of the links down below. I'll include his social media if you want to follow him there on Instagram. I'm going to put all of that stuff down below. So appreciate you guys for watching. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video.